Hello there. In the beginning of June, I kind of made an announcement that I'd be reviewing the Bigme Hibreak, which is this kind of phone-sized e-ink device that has cellular connectivity. I kind of described it as basically an iPod with cellular connectivity, and then down the line toward the end of the year, they'll release a second wave, which is more of a phone. Subscribers to this channel have surely noticed at this point that I haven't done any reviews on the device, and as it turns out, I probably won't be reviewing it. So what happened? Well, that's the point of this video. So we're going to kind of walk through a little bit of the background and share kind of the sequence of events that led me to kind of make the announcement and what's happened since. So hopefully that will all kind of put a little bit of closure on a topic I know that a lot of viewers have been waiting for. So I'm just using this video to explain what happened. All right, so let's kind of start with the very beginning, and this is my relationship with Bigme. Back a little over a year ago when I started this channel, part of the devices that I reviewed was from the Bigme Corporation, and these are devices I just purchased, as any buyer would, and I did a number of reviews like that throughout the course of the year. But it wasn't until kind of the beginning of this year that Bigme actually reached out to me and basically asked if I'd be willing to participate in a program to review their devices. And so, this was kind of exciting for me because it's great to, have, to cut the costs a little bit about, having to purchase the device versus receiving it either as a review copy or for free. In this particular case, they were offering to give me a copy for free, which is great. So that was wonderful. I mean, it's just, I spend a lot of money on the channel, so having that opportunity was pretty cool. But I wanted to make sure, of course, that there were no strings attached to this, that I could review these devices and express my opinion exactly as I saw fit, because that's really kind of the basis of the channel, right? I mean, integrity is a pretty important part of what I'm trying to do. Maybe my opinion is wrong, but at least it's my opinion. And that's what I'm trying to make sure is the case, regardless of how I receive a device. So I let Bigme know that, and their reply to that was, fine, yep, you've got free reign to do whatever you want to do. And that was it. So I ended up reviewing the S6 Color Plus Lite, and turns out I really enjoyed that device. I had a lot of positive things to say about it. It's my kind of go-to e-reader in the 7.8-inch space. So it's either that or the Ellipsa 2E if I want to kind of read on a big screen. So that worked out really well for both Bigme and for myself. And then, I had the opportunity to review other devices. I chose not to. I don't want to review a device unless I feel there's something about that that's special, that there might be a chance I could recommend it. I may not recommend the device in the end, but at least going in, I want to feel like, okay, I think there's an angle on this, and then I explore that angle and we see how that goes. I didn't really see anything else in their portfolio, and I'll go into a little bit more depth about that when I do my profile series and we focus on Bigme. But the short of it is, the main problem they have isn't necessarily that they don't have good products, but it's their price point, and in particularly how that compares to what competitors offer. That's really the concern with a lot of Bigme products. But the light products tend to be better, more competitively priced, and that was definitely the case with the S6 Plus. It kind of played to Bigme's strengths while lessening their weaknesses. So that's why that device ended up doing quite well. But there wasn't any other devices I was interested in, so I didn't ask to review any other devices at that time. Then around the beginning of May, there's the announcement about the Bigme Hibreak, and during this time, my contact from Bigme, who I had worked with ever since they reached out to me, basically notified me of what was going on. And gave me the same talking points really everyone's seen if you've on Reddit or whatever. There was a lot of people that got the same information at the same time, and I was just one of them. But basically at that time I asked, hey, will I have an opportunity to review the Hibreak? And my contact confirmed that I would. Now, this is where I got myself into a little bit of trouble. So I tend to be, in terms of how I conduct myself, a little bit conservative in the sense that, I don't normally want to get too far ahead of myself. I know that sometimes things can go wrong. And so I take a little bit of a cautionary approach at times. And I almost did here as well. So I knew I was going to, hopefully review the Hibreak device. I'd gotten confirmation, and I had worked with Bigme previously. So I thought that was, pretty good, and I would go ahead and announce I was going to review the device because I thought there was a high probability it would occur. But I have to admit, even at that time, there was a little bit of me that's like, you don't have the device yet, and maybe something could go wrong. And I really did weigh that, and then basically decided, no, I'm going to go ahead and let people know that it's coming, and I'll be reviewing it. And that mistake was on me, as we'll see going forward. But that was my thought process at that time. I even, I felt so confident that I was getting the device, I went ahead and bought a prepaid SIM card to be able to use with the device in terms of testing. And I even filmed like 10 minutes, kind of just an introduction to the first video, kind of framing the device. So I really felt like it was going to happen when I announced it. But there was that little angel on my shoulder saying, hold on, you should be careful. And the angel was right. But everything's going fine. We're going toward the end of June. And of course, as you know, the Hibreak was delayed at that time into July. Nothing I thought was particularly concerning. It's not unusual to have delays. Some people were frustrated by that, but it didn't bother me at all. And this is when my troubles began. So I ended up getting an announcement from my contact, who's always been great. This is a contact who, I tried not to bother her that much, but if I did have questions, I would certainly reach out. And she was always willing to get back to me fairly quickly. My contact, who I had a great relationship, reached out and basically said she was leaving the company. And the email was both to let me know that she was leaving and also to kind of hand me off to another representative. And then there was another party involved in the email as well. And I'm not quite clear who that person was because they didn't have a Bigme email address. So based on that email, I responded, and I was sad to see my contact go. And, and then I said, hey, hello to the new contacts. I'm looking forward to working with you. Never got any type of reply to that email, which was, of course, foreshadowing of what was to come. Later on, as it started to become clear that the Hibreaks were going to start to roll out, I reached out to get an update, and there was no response to that email. And then, 10 days later, basically I sent out another one. Hey, am I still even reviewing this device? And there was no response. And as I've noted, it's the end of July going into August, and I haven't heard anything despite these 3 attempts to reach out and connect. So that's where we're at. I've been looking at, of course, my junk folders just in the off chance that maybe something would drop there, which is unlikely since I send an email to those contacts. But there was nothing there, so I haven't missed it as far as I can tell. There's been no outreach at all. Okay, so what do I think this means? Obviously, I don't know. There's been no communication with me. I suspect I'm no longer in the program. That's just based on my feelings. I don't really have any evidence to go by that other than the fact that the device has been out for a while now. There's reviews all over, all over Reddit, all over YouTube. People are reviewing it. It seems unlikely that I am still going to be involved in the program, given that, but not impossible. I kind of think about a range of possibilities, really. I mean, one is, the most positive, I suppose, would be that they knew they were going to release the device. They knew they were probably going to have some rough edges around that release. And in fact, they did release an update shortly after sending out the first batch of copies to folks. So you could make the argument, well, maybe they just want to go through a couple of those iterations and then send it out for a review that might put it in its best light. That would be the best case scenario. And then the other end of that spectrum, of course, is that I've just been dropped from the program and they just didn't want to tell me for some reason. Would be remiss if I didn't mention there are, possible scenarios between those two extremes. And, God forbid, but certainly one scenario is maybe something happened to the representative and the Bigme Corporation, lost my contact information. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons for what happened. And I just have to be very transparent. I just don't know. All I can tell you is that I haven't received the device. No one's responded to me, and it's been a while. So it seems to indicate that maybe I'm out of the loop in a sense. My big complaint against Bigme in this kind of sequence of events is that regardless of the circumstances, and some circumstances, of course, would be more forgivable than others, just depending on what they were. But regardless of it, it's to me, it's an unforced error, which is a parlance from tennis, where you basically yield a point to your opponent when you just hit the ball into the net or you hit it out into the stands or whatever. You create the error that causes the problem. And that's kind of the case here. I mean, if Bigme, for example, made the decision that they didn't want me in the program, then all they needed to do was say that. In fact, it's perfectly rational if that's the case. I mean, I have a very small corner of the internet, and I'm probably not moving a lot of product. So you can make an easy argument that maybe it's not worth the cost of sending me a device. And that would have been fine if they had said that to me. Just let me know. That's basically what I'm saying. So that's essentially what's happened. And I just want to let everyone know that that's the situation. Just looking ahead, will I be reviewing the Hibreak? I don't know. If it does in fact somehow show up, then I would probably review it. I mean, I would definitely honor having received the device, and I would just go ahead and do my normal review. And this would not impact nothing would impact the review. I'm always going to try to give the review as objectively as I can, at least from my perspective. However, in lieu of receiving the device, I'm not interested in buying it. I mean, my passion for it's kind of dwindled a bit. And I could have bought it back, in June at a discount. It's now a little more expensive. It's not a huge increase in price, but it's kind of the principle at this point. I mean, if you didn't want me in the program and I wanted to review it, then you just let me know and then I can make my own decision. It's a bit late for that in my mind. Now, what about reviewing Bigme products going forwards? It's I don't think this really impacts that, but it does make it a little less likely that I'll be reviewing Bigme products. And let me be clear about why that is. So I kind of alluded to this a bit earlier, but the problem Bigme has is that they try to sell their products at a premium over, say, like a company like Books. And they don't necessarily provide the same level of functionality, and particularly in their note-taking app is probably the best example of that. I would actually argue that in terms of an Android tablet, in terms of playing, Google Play apps and that sort of thing, I actually think Bigme and Books are on level terms. And things that Books is relatively well known for, like for example, their BSR technology that reduces ghosting. Well, I've done side-by-side comparisons with Books and Bigme, and yeah, there are some things that Books definitely seems to do better, and it's kind of cool when the ghosting kind of fades away with the BSR. But there's areas where Bigme with their software actually achieves better results. I would rather read comics with a Bigme, for example, with my S6 Plus than I would with a Books device. So Bigme does compete on a level playing field in a number of areas, and I think people don't quite understand that those devices are usually fairly well made, and they're at parity in some respects with Books. But again, not in terms of their reading app, and certainly not in terms of their note-taking app. And so when they sell something at a premium, there's no justification for that. So I have to, I have a budget, and I do run the channel at a loss, which is fine. But, I have to make sure I'm thoughtful about what devices I purchase. And I'm going to be a little more cautious about purchasing Bigme devices because of that dynamic that I just described. And also Bigme kind of has this reputation, which I kind of like, which is they're trying to experiment and trying different things, but a lot of things don't hit. And I can give you some examples. For example, I don't think their monitors did fairly well, and I certainly reviewed those. They've tried to go with, faster processors and more RAM, but to me those are not really value add, and I could go into a whole explanation of why. But there's a certain saturation point, basically, where additional RAM doesn't help and additional processor doesn't really help much either. And those are areas that Bigme's trying to move on the hardware front, and I don't think it's compelling ultimately. Now, if I'd still had a relationship with Bigme and something was kind of on the edge where I wasn't quite sure, but maybe, then I might have made that jump and reviewed a particular device. But now I'll be much more cautious about it, right? Because I'm paying out of pocket. And so that's the only limitation, I would say, going forward. But if Bigme does release something compelling, then, I might go ahead and buy it and review it anyway. There is a lot about Bigme I like as a company. But at the same time, it's hard. This is kind of almost symbolic of kind of a bigger picture of Bigme, which is the fact that, a lot of things don't always hit, and they're always kind of going on to the next thing. And I would have liked to see them, spend more time, for example, refining their note-taking app. I really would have hoped that their note-taking app by this time, versus, say, a little over a year ago, would have more functionality that bridges that gap with the books and a super note. And they've done some of that, to be fair. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of their attention gets focused on these new products, like the monitor, like the phone, trying to find that hit, where I would like to see them develop their note-taking app more. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit. Sorry about that. But to close out, basically, yes, if the Hibreak arrives after all, I will go ahead and review it. Otherwise, I probably won't. And I may or may not review Bigme products going forward. It just depends on the circumstances. So there you go. That's the story. If you have any questions or comments, pop that in. And until then, I will see you next time.